Hello and welcome. In this video we're going to add a little bit to what we looked at with our Python file access by taking a quick look at some of the exceptions you might encounter when you're dealing with files. This way you'll be able to write your scripts to be a little bit more robust and reliable, particularly if you're doing something like prompting the user for a file that you want to access in your script. You can pretty much guarantee that sooner rather than later the user will tell you a file that doesn't exist or that they don't have permissions to access. So what I'm about to cover does assume you're familiar with the basics of Python, particularly opening files, which is in the video right before this one, and exception handling in Python. So there's a few exceptions that we may need to deal with, or commonly will need to deal with when we're accessing files. In particular, that's file not found error. So when we're trying to open a file that doesn't exist, and whether that's for reading, as the slide implies, or for writing, well, no, not for writing, because if you try to open a file for writing that doesn't exist, it will get created. So file not found error is gadged for reading. If it doesn't exist, you can't read from it. So if we go back to my file demo from my previous video, that's not the one I want. It was just file.py, the nice simple one. So if I say open for reading, I won't even do anything with it. If that file doesn't exist, file demo.dat. Our script is going to crash. File not found error. There's no such file. You can't read it. So we could go in and try. That needs a colon. Except file not found error. There. We handle that file not found error, and now our script doesn't crash. We get a nice error message saying, sorry, that file doesn't exist. Maybe we would prompt the user to re-enter. Maybe we exit. That's up to us and what our script is trying to do. Alternatively, you might get a permission error. And this does apply to reading or writing. When you're trying to access a file using a permission that you don't have, you'll get a permission error. So knowing that I keep trying to change the discovery of those moons discovered by Voyager, maybe somebody comes along and says chmod, nobody gets write access to moons.dat. CSV, moons.csv. And now when I say try to access, moons.csv, close instead of file not found error, because that no longer applies. I believe it will let me just check the, permission error. I wasn't sure if it was permission or permissions. Permission error. Sorry, you don't have permission to do that. Oh, because I tried to open for read, but I didn't take away read. Okay, so I'll try to open this for writing since that's the permission I took away. you don't have permission to do that. Whereas if I hadn't put in that exception, when we try to access it, program crashes, permission denied. So by using that permission error, we can handle that. We can deal with that situation. Just a special note about the EOF error that you might read about, end of file error. When you're using the read or readline functions, you won't actually encounter this EOF error. You'll just keep getting empty strings. So don't try to use that to indicate where the end of your file is. Say if you're trying to write a loop, you could maybe do an if statement that if read or readline get you an empty string. That potentially has the problem of what if there's an empty string inside your data. So maybe stick with readlines so you know you get all of your data. But that's up to you and the data file that you're working with. So what we've quickly looked at in this nice short lesson is just a couple of exceptions that you will need to handle when you're trying to access files in Python. Once you know about them, they're super simple to deal with and they just make your scripts more robust. Thank you, and I'll see you in the next video.